to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that I now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that I wake.
Welcome to Dinner with the Coaches. I'm your host, Nadira Lewis, and I have with me my amazing co-host, Thomas T. Taylor.
Woo! Good evening.
I done gave you
a middle name.
I know, right? I gave you a middle name.
My man asked me today, Bird, hey, JT, what's your middle name? I said, nah, I don't have one, man. Detail the third.
Oh my gosh. Welcome each and every one of you to Dinner with the Coaches. If you are watching us via YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button so that you can be notified every time we upload a new video. If you are watching us via Facebook, make sure you click like and share if you are blessed by the content that we bring every Sunday evening. All right, Thomas. So we got an amazing broadcast for you today. We're going to talk about something so powerful. We're going to talk about the power of belief. But before we do that, we're going to play this amazing video. And when we get back, we're going to go into our topic. So make sure you go get your coffee, call up your friends, and let them know Dinner with the Coaches is on the air. We'll be right back after this.
Long before the beginning of all other beginnings, God is. In a burst of creative activity, God creates the world and everything in it. Humans are designed to live inside of this unique relationship, but they choose otherwise. The law of God is broken, and the heart of God is pierced. But the story isn't over. In the fullness of time, God gives his Son, born of a woman, born under the law. Jesus comes to seek and save those who are lost, wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. On the cross, God is in Christ, reconciling the world to himself. And with a loud cry, Jesus breathes his last. But the story isn't over. On the morning of the third day, the power of the living God erupts, breaking through death with the moment that will define all other moments. Perched at the edge of heaven, the angels stand in awe as one of their own rolls away the stone that's guarding the body of Jesus. As if anything can guard Jesus. He walks out of the tomb alive. He is victorious. He is conquering death and rendering the grave unnecessary. He is living and moving and breathing as only the risen Son of God can. But the story isn't over. We are, every one of us, searching and hoping and longing for life. It's a desire that's been deposited into our souls by the very same God who spoke it all into existence. And it's this exact life that the resurrection of Jesus invites us into. So bring your hopes, your regrets, your successes and your failures. Bring your doubts, your joys, your fears and your dreams. Be resolute and unwilling to settle for anything less than the abundant life of the risen King. Because truly, if the story isn't over, then what happens next might just change everything.
All right, now we are back here with Dinner with the Coaches. Ooh, Thomas, every time I see that video, it never gets old with me. I'm always just blown away by the reality of what's being said in the video. What if the story isn't over, then what happens next can mean everything. Whoa. So Thomas, you want to take our audience into our topic today? We're going to dialogue about an amazing topic today. Thomas is going to get into it with us, and we're going to go ahead and we want you to chime in with us. Put it in the comments where you're watching from, and engage with us. We're going to have an amazing time this evening. So, Thomas, you want to go ahead and introduce our topic, and let's get going.
Yeah. So again, good evening, everybody. It's going to be Nadir and I tonight. We're going to go ahead and bless you with some conversations that we've been having over the last probably week or so with the different experiences that Nadir and I have had the opportunity to experience. And what we want to talk about is the power of influence, right? Like Nadir went and saw a very influential individual over this past weekend, and she'll get into some details about that. And the crowd that he was able to draw based upon his ability to understand two things: belief and what he was told in terms of understanding what that is, and then service. And why those are important? Because when you get those two lined up, when you get a belief and or a belief system, and then you attach service to that, there's a magnitude and multitude of people that you can serve. Now, why is that important? Right? Because, I follow Jim Rohn. He's one of my, great influences. And Jim Rohn was asked a question. They said, Jim, what's the key to greatness? And Jim Rohn said, service. He says, service is the key to greatness. So just think about that for a moment. If you tie your belief, the things that you hold dear to you, and then you find a way to utilize that thing to service the people, whether that's via a product, a service, or somehow you can service people where people feel that they're getting value, one day they will too call you great. So Nadir, why don't you kind of share like who you met and like what that experience was like, and then what you gathered from that, and then we could kind of move right into how powerful influence is, right? Like who you're listening to, who you're following, things of that nature.
Definitely. And I posted on Facebook, I met the awesome David Immunite. And it's funny because how I actually ran into him, we're influenced by many different people that we talk to, whether it's people that we talk on the phone with, people we meet with, interact with. So I met David, and I actually was introduced to him through just watching a podcast. I love to watch different podcasts. And so I was listening to him talk about belief, and I was so motivated about I like stood up in my seat like, what? And because of the powerful things that he was saying with such simplicity, and I don't know if you know what I mean by that. It wasn't with elegant words. It was very simple in terms of how he felt about belief. And I thought, man, this is something this man really internalized. This is something he lives, breathes, and eats. This isn't something he just says just to be on a podcast. So I stayed up to about 2:00 in the morning, just researching and just listening to some of the stuff that he was saying, because I was so impressed with just the way, how far he has become successfully, both financially, spiritually, emotionally, and how balanced he was with it. I thought that, there's not many people that I have interacted with that has either had one higher or greater than the other. But to see somebody of that sort of magnitude walk in such humility, and it's all because of belief, I had to kind of figure out. So a friend of mine's invited me, to a private residence, and we actually talked about some stuff that he's actually going to be introducing, which is going to, we'll talk more about that as the time gets closer. But I had to sit in the front row because I was like, I got to hear what this man has. I got to be in his presence. I got to see what it is that he's doing that I could add to my life and my business. And I was blown away that at the core, he started with who he was as a believer, and how it started with God said. And it's funny because you and I, that's how we met. You know, we met each other talking, and the first thing you asked me was, Nadira, what did God say to you? And though it took me 7 to 8 months to actually recall the exact same thing, it was amazing to see him stand at such a place to be able to say, this is what God told me to do. This is what he said, and how he talked about the power of belief and how that impacts your business. It impacts it impacts how you interact with people. It impacts everything around you. So I started to really dig into making sure that everything that I do, and he said something that was powerful. He said, never start a business that's easy for you to do, but make sure it's easy for others to do as well. So when you think about the service industry business and you think about everything, most people start a business because of their passion, right? I'm passionate about this. Yeah. I'm passionate about that. But but very few people start a business saying that their passion has to do with serving other people. Most of the time is what we want to do to service those people. I want to be able to do this, not realizing that the people that are successful in the service industry business are people that service the people, that are passionate about serving the people. And so I think I learned a lot from that, because even in what we do, even in what I do as a coach and what I do in other business ventures that I'm a part of, I have made it a priority to make sure that people were at the priority of why I do what I do. You know, because our purpose, if we are a purpose, right, that means that if God's going to get the glory out of what we do, then we have to know that God so loved the world that he gave his life, right? So if we're going to, from a believer standpoint, be able to operate in the service industry, we have to keep in mind that people have to be at the root of why we do what we do.
Yeah, and here at Dinner with the Coaches, that's part of our philosophy, right? And that's people first. And the reason why that is so different is because the world that we live in is so selfish, right? It's a me, I, self-driven society, right? Like, because social media has took on like wildfire, people are getting overly excited about likes. You even have teenagers, committing suicide based upon what somebody said to them on social media, right? Things of that nature, exactly. because of the selfishness that permeates, right? It's just out there. So when you're in a position of authority, a coach, a trainer, a business owner, things of that nature, you are an influencer. And it seemed like for some reason, since the onset of COVID, like we really lost the customer service aspect. I think because the world went into hiding, you know what I mean? We kind of got okay with that behavior and not realizing that you still have to interact, right? So now when we come out of this, it's like people in the service industry are still acting like they don't need to converse with individuals. They don't need to service the people. It's almost like, just self-service. Like, nah, there's no interaction that's needed. But in the business world, right, you represent your brand, ladies and gentlemen. You are your brand, right? And the words that come out of your mouth are very vital to your brand. So if you think about it, typically based upon what's in your mind and what's in your heart, your mouth speaks. And that's key. So that's what we're talking about, the power of influence, right? Like who is actually influencing you? Because that's how you're going to carry yourself. That's how you're going to move. That's how you're going to speak, based upon the things that you try to emulate, right? So in business, that's very instrumental because of the service that's required, right? So if you're following the wrong individuals and they don't understand how important service is, you might not think that service is important until it becomes important. Now it becomes a major issue. You know what I mean? So when you follow a guy like you talked about, David, like he caught it. Not only did he catch it, now he's teaching it. And that's powerful because we always talk about you learn to teach. Now, if anybody really heard that concept before, I always talk about, I teach my team, because what happens is when we gather data, if you take data in and if you try to process the data that it actually works for you, now you take that data and you put that data in a box. And if it doesn't fit inside of your box, you just discard some of that vital information. You don't know it's vital because you think you don't need it. But when you're intaking information from individuals, ladies and gentlemen, if you learn it to teach it, you don't hold it. You don't get attached to it. You learn it yourself. How can I learn from this to teach it? See? And information becomes like currency. Well, why is it called currency? Because it has to move. If your money don't move, your money don't make money. That's the flow. That's current. That's currency. Information is the same way. Knowledge is the same way. They're talking about applied knowledge. Why is applied knowledge important? Because it's moving past you now. See? You can gain all the knowledge, but if you don't utilize the knowledge, it's useless knowledge. It's knowledge, Nadira, but it's useless. Why? Because you didn't apply it. Right. So when you saw him, what you saw was him learning some things, and he was teaching it at the same time. He was learning and teaching. He was learning and teaching. Now, I wasn't there, but I promise you that's what he was doing. Because he understood some things that we're talking about. And when you understand these things, it becomes easy for you. Why? Because most people haven't heard the concept, Nadira. Because most people were not taught this concept. So what happens? You gather information like a squirrel gather nuts. And then the next thing you know, and you got all this information. You're not moving the information, gathering it, storing it. Hopefully to use it one day. But if you learn, when you move it, when you learn it, and when you teach it, now what happens is there's a oneness that happens. Now you take that knowledge and information and you start to become one with it. Because the best way to learn and understand something is to teach it. Because when you teach it, you realize two things. You realize how much you know, and then you realize how much you don't know. Between those two.
Wow, that's powerful. Wow. Say that again for the people in the back. Say that again for the people in the back. Ooh, that's powerful.
When you learn to teach, two things is going to happen. One, you're going to realize how much you know about the information that you're disseminating and how much you don't know. And that gap, what will happen is the gap may be this wide when you start. But the more you teach, the more you learn, the gap narrows. That gap is shorter. Why? Because eventually you become one with the information. Wow. Now when you won, it's who you are now. Now you start to attract people. You don't go looking for people. You start to attract it. Why? Because you're emulating it. Because your gap is not wide anymore. Well, you don't even know you have a gap, Nadira, if you're not teaching. Because what's your gauge? You don't have a gauge. This is a gauge. Because when I start articulating and when I start teaching, I realize what I don't know. Now, I don't raise my hand and say what I don't know, but I realize there's some gaps. And I slowly start narrowing and filling those gaps. Right? The same thing we talk about, I'm going to use this analogy. There's a lot of people that's watching us right now that are scared to death to go live on Facebook. They're scared to death to go live on Instagram. I'm telling you right now. But now think about this. They will stay up half the night and scroll on Facebook, and they'll scroll on Instagram. Okay? But check this out. Now here we go. Now they're learning and they're gathering information. But when you go live, Nadira, is when you realize how much you know and how much you don't know. You see the gap? But as long as you just scroll, you don't realize there's a gap. And you wonder why your life doesn't emulate theirs. Why? Because Facebook and Instagram and TikTok are video orientated. Now, some people do Canva, they do posts, but if you did some analytics, those people who stay on sites the longest, there's a video content. There's video that's happening. Because you see how your eyes got wide? It draws you in. Some are funny, some you laugh, some are crazy, but it's video content. So just think about it. If you make a decision, those that are listening, to start to go live just to tell your story like Nadira did the other day, or share something with people, what'll happen is you start to narrow your own gap in things that you're deficient in. Because it'll show up. But then soon there'll be no deficiencies, and you become, there's a oneness that'll happen. And you go live right now, right? Boom, go live, boom, 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 and you be good. But that doesn't happen unless you move that information. You just stay stuck, not liking the emotions that it gives you when you hit live. You see that anxiety? It's anxiety. Most people don't like it, so they don't do it. But why is it that, think about it, why is it that, and anybody that's watching, I don't care who you watch on any of the platforms that's an influencer, I promise you're watching a video of them speak, you're watching a video of them train, somehow, somewhere, you're watching a video of them. You're not just looking at text, like words, copy. You're watching a video of them. Right? Now, if you ever went to the archives and found their first videos, you'd be amazed. You'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe this is the same person. Yeah. They got better over time because their gap narrowed. Slowly but surely. Their gap narrowed, right? So we talk about the power of influence. We really got to think about who we're listening to, who we want to emulate, and what they're doing. Because once we understand that, we incorporate that with our belief, now we have a winning formula and a winning system, Nadira.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the power of belief. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about the importance of something that Thomas and I discussed earlier during the week is with belief, you have to understand the power of your voice. And no matter how many times, even the problem is most people don't want to go live and they don't want to be in front of the camera. They don't want to be in front of the crowd is because they don't understand the power behind their voice. And we're going to talk more about that. So when we come back, so we'll be right back after this.
Yeah.
All right, and we are back with Dinner with the Coaches. We have, if you've missed our first part, I need you to go back and hit the replay button because we were sharing some really, really good stuff. But this segment, Thomas is going to introduce, we're going to go into what we say, we're going to go deeper. And talk about more about the power of influence. And one of the things, Thomas, that I wanted to open up with the second half we're talking about is, you said something to me earlier during the week, and we talk a lot and we talk about a lot of different things. And you said something about there's nothing that can replace the power of your voice, right? Mm-hmm. And so most of the time, when we don't understand our value, we don't understand what we bring to the marketplace, we lose our voice in the midst of it. It doesn't matter how many times we create different memes and advertisement. There's nothing that replaces your voice. And that's why I did a video live on Instagram, which I don't usually go live on Instagram very often, but I went live on Instagram and I talked about the power of your story, because most people don't understand that the things that you've gone through in your life and in your business are there you're supposed to be able to extract lessons from that, right? And be able to help other people that are going through the same thing, and be able to take those lessons and be able to build on it in your own life, not just for other people, but you get to take part of those lessons also. And when you said that, talking about the power of your voice, nothing replaces your voice, that thing really sat with me. And I thought, wow, we do a lot of things. We do, I'm in the creative industry, so I'm a content creator. So I love to create. But when you said that, you made me really look at how important it is to really think about the information and really think about the value that I bring to my business and in other people's lives, and take that time and really use my voice, especially, when you're in a situation where you may have been used to being, having to be, people telling you talk too much, and people telling you, it affects how you present yourself. When people feel like, oh my gosh, they feel like you're long-winded, or you feel like Joyce Meyer said, they used to tell her all the time she talked too much, but then look at what she's doing now. So me in that of hearing you talk too much, and every time I turn around, you talking, and then you start to feel like people aren't. You start to kind of feel like you produce this insecurity that people aren't listening. Right. But what you realize is that you don't need everybody to listen. You need the ones who are supposed to listen to listen. Yeah. And so what I started to do is, I was meditating on that, and I said, you know what? I'm going to focus on who God has put before me. And I'm not going to focus on who's not listening to me. I'm going to focus on the ones that are listening to me, because I'm not called to speak into everybody's life, into everybody's business. I only want the people that God sent to me, right? Because if I focus on the people that God specifically sent in my path, now I don't have to struggle with trying to impress the world. Right? Because I'm not trying to get you to believe and you to believe. I only want the ones that are called to interact with me. They're the only ones that are going to be impacted by what I say. So I am sharpening my voice. I am sharpening my skill set to be able to speak to those people.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? And I'm going to go over some things inside of there. And one is, those that are listening, you have to ask yourself a serious question. And the question is, based upon your life, like, who do you feel silenced you? Because sometimes, somewhere, there's somebody that silenced us. Okay. So this is what happens. There's different levels of speaking, Nadira. Okay. So when you really understand that a lot of people can talk, right? Some people are saying certain things, some people are not. There's an art to communicate. Everybody has something to say, but everybody can't communicate. And so when I say there's levels, because you can have a conversation with people, you can converse with individuals and share. But when you get on social media in front of millions of people, you have to understand why you're speaking. See, because the why are you speaking? Yeah, see that? Who silenced you? But who silenced you? Because that's important. Because now when you speak, you have to understand why are you speaking. If you don't understand why you're speaking, Nadira, you will allow those who silenced you to win.
Absolutely.
Because the why should be more powerful than the who. And especially if that who is not your creator.
Right.
Right. So now why is that important? I'm gonna go one more level deeper. So when I got challenged almost 2 years ago, when we was in a group with, Sean Rais at the time, to go live, myself, and the rest of us, I started to go live because I was challenged. Now, I always was able to communicate, and things that I say now are things that I used to talk to people in my circle for years that I used to speak about. But when he challenged us and I went live, I was scared to death because I saw no reason to go live to talk to people for what? Right? Like my throat was all like I felt like I was on cotton, man. Like, and I see why when people speak, they always have water, man. I couldn't talk. I was tracking. I couldn't breathe. I'm like, oh my God, like why do people do this, man? But then, Nadira, I wanted to stop. But then I started getting a lot of engagement. And then I started getting calls on the side. People was kind of critiquing me and helping me. But I kept going though. And I kept going. And now almost 2 years later, I'm still going. Now why is that important? Because I realized that what God was telling me, he was giving me this as a vehicle. So now something that started as a challenge, I started to understand why. And that became more important than the how and the who. Why? Because when you understand why, now you understand there's a vibration that happens with your voice.
That's good.
That vibration that happens with your voice, it's a frequency. It's just like, ladies and gentlemen, if you turn on your radio, and if you turn the B103, if you turn the 103.5, you're not going to get 103.3 station. Nadira not from the North. She's from New Jersey. I'm from New York. We listen to WBLS, right? If we was home, we would turn to 107.5. If we turn to 107.6, we wouldn't get BLS. We could get country western. So the frequency is very vital because the frequency has your vibration. And those that are called to your frequency, that's who you're speaking to. Now, you don't realize who they are because they're not coming out and raising their hand, Nadira. They're in the back somewhere. But they hear the vibration of your voice.
That's good.
And there's a clarion call that happens that they tune in. Now when I go live, and I try to keep it on, now when I go live on Sundays, people are physically jumping on the call. Like before, nobody used to jump on. Now, people, they're not just watching, they're engaging. They're jumping on, talking, asking questions, things of that nature. Why? Because it's the frequency. And when you understand what I'm talking about, I get hyped. When you understand, I get excited. You understand what I'm talking about?
I love it.
The frequency and now the consistency. See, now I have to work on moving them to a different platform and then really servicing them, right? Because I'm a coach. What do you need? How can I help you? What's going on in your life? What's going on in business, right? Those are the things that I have to work on that I'm moving towards. But I understand this that I'm showing that I'm teaching is I started because it was a challenge. I understood the the essence of why. Then I realized there was a frequency that I was on and people were tuning into. So now you have their ear. That's a vital part of communication. Why? A lot of people have things to say, but there's an art to communicating. One of the parts of communicating is meeting people where they are.
Meeting them where they are. Yep, I agree.
That's vital. It doesn't matter how much you know. Why? Because people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
That's right.
They know how much you care. So you can have this amount of knowledge, but if they're here, they don't care about this knowledge. Meet them here and elevate their consciousness. That's effective communication because it's two-way. Right. So when you talk about your voice, Nadira, the reason why I was having a conversation with you is because there's a vibration that you miss by not speaking. You think that your words in terms of your copy, your memes and stuff is telling your message. It's only telling one part of it.
Yeah.
If you said the same thing you post, you have a different level of engagement. Why? Because it's the frequency that you're speaking on is what's catching people's vibration.
That's good.
They're gonna read, but if I, because I write notes, right? If I took Look at all my index cards, man. Look at all my index cards. Look at my index cards of all my Facebook Live.
You are always prepared.
But if I took one of my index cards, this one was on the 3 P's: pain, purpose, and positioning, right? And if I posted this, it's like posting the facts.
Right.
Right? If I posted this and I gave some instructions on these 3 things, right? And some people would look at it, they would engage. But now if I download it and if I repurpose the video when I explain these 3 things, it's a different vibration.
Right.
You see that? I'm not saying copy is not good, right? But I'm saying we all should be more diversified, right? Like I speak more than I post copy, right? I can post more copy, more instructional stuff to balance myself out, right? I mean that's fine, because I don't have a problem. It's not an issue for me to come on live, boom, go. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge for me to do Canva and get this nice copy and say this nice thing, man. I just rather hit the button, man. Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everybody's doing well on this Sunday morning. I'd rather go. You know what I mean? Sit there and to me, man, it's like watching paint dry, man. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I got to do. But anyway, man, just making light of it is like everybody that's listening, I really want you to understand the significance of your voice, right? Now I'm going to say this last thing, then I'm going to pass it over to you, Nadira. For those of you that were raised a particular way, just listen to me for a moment so you really can understand. I'm going to drive this point home. For those of us that were raised in the 70s and in the 80s, even in the 60s, but the 70s and the 80s. Just think about your grandmother or your mother giving you that look. She didn't say no words. She just gave you that look, whether you was in church, whether you was in the grocery store, whether you was in the mall, she gave you that look. Once she gave you that look, and some of us still use it today with our kids. Once she gave you that look, you stopped doing whatever you was doing. Now, why is that important?
Yep.
because it was a form of nonverbal communication. Why? Because that was the first level. What was the second level? She opened her mouth and gave you a warning. That was the second level. Because if she spoke something now, that's second level. Third level, it was a wrap. It was a wrap. Because when she told you, you're going to get it when you get home, oh yeah, you got it when you got home.
You sure did.
Because she spoke that, right? They yes was yes and they no was no, right? But I'm talking about communication and vibration. And we all, most of us, grew up in that era, understanding the level of the look, the voice, and then the command. See? It's no different today. So social media just makes it convenient for us to hide behind it. But like I told you, Nadira, and anybody that's listening, if you research anybody that you follow, I don't care who they are, they're gonna have videos. They're gonna have some sort of audio that's going to attract you, right? Right. So sometimes we think that we can do without it because of what somebody else said about us, and took our voice, and it makes us timid, right? It makes us very shy and gun shy, right? But at the end of the day, you got power. Why? Because somewhere in that book I read in Proverbs talk about life or death is in the power of the what? Of the tongue. It didn't say of the pen. It said of the tongue. It didn't say of the copy. It said of the tongue, Nadira. Life or death. Now, there's some power in the pen, right? That's in Habakkuk somewhere about writing the vision, right? There's some power in the pen, right? But it may not be life or death. It's power. He said life or death is in the tongue. And that's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. That's the seriousness of what we're talking about. We're talking about life and death. Why? Because there's people right now that's assigned to you. And if you don't speak to those people, they just might perish, not ever knowing or experiencing your voice. But you was assigned to them and don't realize it. That's how powerful this is. That's why we're talking about life or death. Because you, not me, not Nadira, you just may have the right words, the right voice to free that person. But you'll never know, and they'll never hear you if you don't put yourself in a position to speak. Again, I talk about Purpose-Driven Life, right, by Rick Warren. If you read that book, somewhere on page 14 or so, 14 to 17, the first thing it says is, it's not about you. If you take you out of the equation, and if you speak, I promise you, somebody on the other end will listen. But you think that what you have to say is not relevant. It is. If your creator put it inside of you, he put it inside of you for a reason. And it's not just for you. He assigned you to somebody that's waiting. Somebody needs to hear your voice. Somebody needs to hear my voice. Somebody needs to hear Nadira's voice to help them. Why? Because they may look like you. They may look like me. They may look like Nadira. But you got to understand, they don't have the mental fortitude. They don't have the mental wherewithal to get through wherever they are, right? Because wherever they are in life, in order to get to the next level, they have to get to the next level in their mind first, not physical, right? It's not a physical transition. It's a mental transition first. And what happens if you have the key? If you can say something that can help them get to that next level, that can unlock something inside of them that they've been struggling with, and you think it doesn't matter. It does matter. You think nobody's listening. They are listening. Nobody cares. They do care. They do. Most people are closet watchers, if you will. Like, they don't say nothing. They way in the back. They just watching. They're waiting for you to stop, or they're waiting for you to fail. And then when they realize those two things are not happening, they get on board. Hey, let me listen to this Nadira. Let me see what she got to say. Wow, she always showing up on Fridays. You know, she's always got some guest talking about something that's beneficial. It's not just rhetoric. It's beneficial.
Right.
It's important, right? So I really want people who's watching to understand that there's a vibration that happens. There's a frequency that your voice is on, that when people tune to your frequency, they're going to be dialed in. They're going to be listening to whatever it is that you have to say. So now Nadira and I talked about preparation. And I get it. Some of you guys right now, you're saying, Thomas, yeah, that sounds good, but I got to prepare. I got to write my notes. I don't want to sound, foolish. I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. And I get it. And I understand, right? So just take half the time to prepare. What happens is, you prepare, but you never deliver, though. Why? Because you just get distracted in your preparation. You got good intentions, right? And we heard some of us heard, like, why? What do we hear? We heard that done is better than perfect when perfect never gets done, right? So on this Sunday, I'm just challenging you, just get it done. Don't worry about what it looks like. Don't worry about what it sounds like. Just get it done. Why? Because as long as you wake up tomorrow and breathe another breath of fresh air, guess what? You got a chance to get it right. You got a chance to fix whatever it is that you did. Not what you say you were going to do. You can't fix what you say you're going to do because you never did it. Do it and then fix it. Do it and then critique it. Right? Because if you're just talking about it, there's nothing to fix. Right? Because when you got it all done, guess what? The opportunity is gone. Oh, Nadira, hey, don't worry about it. We got somebody else. Don't worry about it. Yeah, people up the road.
Yeah.
So,
and when you think about really, you can't really understand the power of influence until you understand the message and impact behind your story. And so that's why I constantly say over and over again, tell your story, because telling your story helps you to become comfortable, with being able to share your experiences with other people. There's an impact that comes when you start to share your experiences, whether it's in personal life or whether it's in business. When you share your experiences, it doesn't only help the person. You don't only impact the person that you're talking to or the group of people that you're talking to. It helps you because, like Thomas said, there's some things that you don't know. Like, they're even in telling my story. When I tell my story, there's things that I've told my story over and over and over again, but there's something new I learned every time I share my story, things that I realized that I overlooked in understanding as I start to share my story. And so when I went on Instagram and I talked about it, and I say, we don't understand that there's impact when you go live and you begin to share what it is that you're experiencing, what it is that you've learned, what it is that you feel like is on your heart. You'd be amazed. I didn't want to go live either. When I first started to go live, I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm better talking one-on-one to people, because I notice that when I'm talking with somebody one-on-one or in a group setting, I start to say things and things come out of me that I didn't even realize. That it's like I have to look back and be like, dang, I said that? Like, wow. So going live was just like, oh no, I'm just the observer. I'll just sit back. But what I realized is, I said, you know what? I had to understand the power of the impact, the message that I was bringing with my story. And when I had that in front of me of who might be listening, whose life this might save, and when people call me and they be like, Nadira, oh my God, I've seen you. Most people that see me talk now and see me where I am now, they're like, man, I remember when, you were this and you were that. And though I was always a talker, I was never the type of person that talked in front of a whole bunch of people. I would be like individual, I would get with you one-on-one. So to go live and talk in front of, on just one of my pages, I have like over 7,000 people on that page. So it was like talk over, so weekly you're talking to over 10,000 people a week. It's like, huh? But every time I turn around, there's not a month, a week, a day that goes by that people don't reach out to me and say, hey, your story impacted me. Hey, I see what you're doing and I am impacted. I am encouraged. And I do it because I know personally people, and I know there's people that are watching me that I may not know, have been in that same point where at that same place where they know that they have some things and experiences that has happened in their life and they can help other people. They have the knowledge, they have the skill set, but they don't have the courage. They don't have the belief that their words, their message is going to impact people. And so what I always say is that you don't have to worry about impacting people, the whole world. Just get out there and just impact one person. Just do it if you only have a crowd of one. We don't do this weekly for a huge crowd. If we get a huge crowd as a result of it, then that's great. Then we know we've extended past our reach. But the majority of the time, Thomas and I do this because it's what we have been called to do. Is to share our experiences and to take the lessons that we've learned. Him being a visionary coach and me being an inspirational life and business coach. We really emphasize on you really going deeper and finding out the gifts that God has given you and learn how to maximize and learn. And we teach you how to strategize and take those gifts and be able to make them work for you in the marketplace. God said he's given us all things pertaining to life and godliness, right? We didn't come empty. We came fulfilled. We came in this world complete with everything that we need to become the person that we are. And God will enter, he will allow us to interact and impact, be in the midst of other people that can help us become better at who we are, can help us strategize. And the more we do this, we've been doing this now for over a year with Just Dinner with Coaches. So we have kudos. I give us a shout out for being this for over a year at being consistent. And we continue to work on getting better at perfecting, our gifts and making sure that God gets the glory out of what we do and making sure most of all that we're here to help you do the same thing. So if you want to coach with us and Thomas, always, Thomas is, when we coach as a group in the Dinner with the Coaches. And we have an amazing opportunity. We have an amazing time to impact your life, but we get down and we rip some things apart and we get down to the bottom of why you can't move in the direction that you're supposed to go in. So if you've ever thought about, I wonder what coaching will be like with Thomas and Nadira, you can find out, and you can find out by reaching out to us. Just send us a message at Dinner with the Coaches on Facebook and reach out to us, and we'd love to be able to coach you and get you to that place, because that's what this is all about. This is about taking what we learned, embraced, internalized, and teaching it to you and the others that are in the midst of us.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, people watching, that's why we do what we do. It's just to be in a position where, when you was talking, I just thought about your gifts, right? Like a lot of times people don't put themselves in a position to exercise their gifts. First, a lot of people don't even know what their gifts are. And then if they do, they don't really challenge themselves and stretch themselves to do that thing in front of people, right? Now, I know it's hard. I know it's difficult because you put yourself in a vulnerable situation where you could be critiqued, you could be talked about, all these different things, right? But that's just a part of it, ladies and gentlemen. Like, you couldn't have good if you didn't have bad, right? You can't really get to success if you don't have failure. Like failure is a part of success. It's just tuition, right? It's just a part of it. So the reason why we do what we do at Dinner with the Coaches is because we realize that, we have some synergy that can help people, right? Things, we have different guests on, and, they bring all types of different information, that we learn as well just by having a guest on talking about particular topics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a rarity where you have, a female and a male, that whole synergy, which is a beautiful thing to be able to bounce things off of. And then you have guests who are adding more value, right? And again, it's not costing anybody nothing but time right now. You know what I mean? When you turn on your TV, Netflix, and something, it's like, yo, is that Thomas and the Coaches? Thomas? Yeah, he's yeah. Now you turn on your TV, here they go. Yeah, that's how he does it. You know what I mean? That's just a part of it. Good evening. Welcome. That's just how it happens. But how did it first start happening? We just gave, right? Yes, it's a part of giving because we figured some things out, right? And we just put ourselves in a vulnerable position where we're on Front Street, but we're giving. And then we're also giving out of our gifts, right? And our gift basket will never be empty. Never be empty. It will never because it doesn't get filled by man.
Right. Ooh.
Ooh,
that is powerful.
Another day.
It's powerful. And one of the things we didn't discuss, what I want to also get in, I know we don't have very much time, but man, when we talk about the power of influence, the people that speak into your life, the people that you allow in your inner circle to feed you on a day-to-day basis, you have to be careful that you don't allow yourself to be engulfed with things that are not causing you to grow, not causing you to get to the next level. When you start to feel like, because we, like you said, we listen to so many people on the internet, on YouTube, there's people that are around us in our inner circle. We have to be really careful to make sure that, especially when you're trying to grow, anything that sits and stagnant starts to stink after a while.
Yeah.
I was talking about, I said this months ago, and I think when we had everybody on months ago, said if you sit a dozen of eggs on the table and you let those eggs sit overnight, they're gonna stink, right? So it's gonna stink. So you have to be careful that you don't allow your mind to just be idle and allow yourself to continue to ingest and digest things that are not going to help you propel you to where you're supposed to be. So you have to be, you are accountable, and you should be a good steward over your thoughts, over your words, over your ear gates. Be careful with what you hear, and make sure you're intentional about your growth. Because you know what? I was telling, I think I don't know who I was talking to. I might have been talking to you, Thomas, when I was talking about my, I was talking to Christian. And Christian and I have conversations like this a lot of times. And so does Preach. It's a beautiful thing when you can talk to your adult kids about life and business. It's so refreshing. So I was telling my son, I said, and when I look at Bella's 8 years old, right? She's about to be 9 this year. And I thought, Bella, the things that Bella know now as an 8-year-old, she didn't know as a 5-year-old. And the reason why she knows what she knows at 8 is because there was some growth that took place from the age of 5 until 8. Well, what was that growth? Did it just happen automatically? No, she's in school. She's in school at home, and she's at school in the daytime. So when she's in school, she's constantly feeding her brain information that provokes change. There's no way you can continuously feed yourself information and don't get the results of the change that's supposed to take place from that information. So I said, look at her. She now knows how to read. She comprehends in ways that she wasn't able to comprehend at 5 years old, because now I can talk to her. I can communicate with her on a different level than I did when she was 5 years old, because of her exposure to information. So now when she's in school, she's learned how to read. She's continuously learning how to read. She learned how to communicate. She's learning language. So guess what? Now I can have a conversation with an 8-year-old and it makes sense what I say to her and because even at 8, she understands at a level she didn't at 5. And I said, it's the same way with us as adults. When we are growing and we are learning, we have to constantly be intentional in what we allow in our ear gates, what we allow in our eye gates. We have to make sure we're intentional with what we learn so that we can see the results of the information that we are consuming on a day-to-day basis, no matter where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it was an awesome evening. And there's something I want those that are listening, I want you to take something away from this whole conversation. And one of those things Nadira kind of mentioned is, what did your creator tell you about you? Right? If you don't know that answer, just take some time and really think about it, right? Like, what's inside of your heart? What's inside of your spirit? What's feeding you? Like, what did he tell you? Right? Now, I didn't say, what do you believe? I said, what did he tell you first? That's the first thing, right? And then the second thing is, how much of what he told you do you believe? That's the second thing, right? And that's very vital to what we're talking about in terms of influence. Why? Because if you don't know the answer to those two questions, what'll happen is you'll be like a sailboat without a sail, right? The reason why a sailboat gets to its destination is because the sail determines the direction that the boat goes in. If a sailboat doesn't have a sail, guess which way the boat goes? The way the wind blows.
The way
the wind blows. And that's how you'll be on social media. You'll be following every person on social media, whatever way the wind blows. If you don't know what he told you, and if you don't know how much of what he told you you believe, that's very, very vital. Because then the next thing you get into, and we don't have a whole lot of time, is why. Your why will be your driver. There's a reason why, right? But if not, you don't know why you're following everybody. You don't know why you're following the next big thing. That's why you're going over here, then you're going over here, then you're going over here. Because you haven't slowed down to figure out, what did he tell Mike? What did he tell John? What did he tell Mary? What did he tell Fred? Right? What did he tell you? See, if nobody asked you that question, I'm asking you today. What did he tell you? Think about it. Right? Because then you're going to find some answers, right? You're going to probably have more questions than answers, but there's going to be a level of conversation that happens with yourself. Now, belief, we'll talk about it, because I know when he told me what he told me, I ain't believe it. I'm still trying to believe it, but it scared the bejesus out of me. Right? So I'm working on my belief. Right? Like, whoa. Yeah, he told me that I'll be one of the greatest inspirational speakers in the world. That's what he told me. Did I believe it? Nah. It scared me? Yeah. Scared the bejesus out of me. You know what I mean? But slowly, I'm starting to believe it because I understand why.
Yeah.
We don't have enough time. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough time, boy. We don't have enough time. But like always, it's always a pleasure being able to share and have dialogue and communicate and have some nice, conversations and converse about things that matter, ladies and gentlemen, because I know you're out there. You could be struggling and dealing with certain things, think that you're alone. Well, here at Dinner with the Coaches, that's why, for us, we like to draw people in, right? We like to talk about things that matter, right? And these things matter, right? Because they're life or death, right? Because we really want you to live. Well, not just exist. See, when you're doing certain things every single day on a regimen, you're just existing. When you start to understand and tap into your gift as to why you do certain things, now you start to experience living, right? It's just a different level, right? So here at Dinner with the Coaches, that's what we work on invoking. It's like really kind of not being afraid to have those real, tough, heartfelt, warm conversations in a, non-threatening environment. That's a safe environment, but it pulls, it stretches, and it challenges our mental capacity and our mindset of what we hold dear to us. See, there's certain things that all of us hold sacred, like we put them in this lockbox and we just lock it. It's just sacred. Like I can't move from here. I can't do this. I won't do that because it's inside this box. We just find the key and we just unlock the box and we deal with what's inside that box. It's been a plum as well as a
If you guys are enjoying Dinner with the Coaches, make sure you we do have a group. If you have a business, we have a group specifically for business owners. If you are a business owner and you would like to be a part of our Dinner with the Coaches group, make sure you go to facebook.com/Dinner with the Coaches and sign up to be a part of our group. We're going to be sharing some amazing things weekly, doing weekly briefings and business. We got so much planned for that group. If you're not a part of that group, you're going to be missing out. So make sure you join us in the Dinner with the Coaches group. Send us a request and Thomas and I'll be more than happy to make you a part of the group so that you can continue to learn and grow in the gift that God has given you. You have power and influence. Don't just let things happen. Make things happen. Thomas, you have anything else you want to say?
No, it's been a pleasure as well as a privilege. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing weekend.
I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that I Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that I wake.